So, Liberation News, which is the newspaper for the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We've talked about Red Note, and I think that is a really good introduction for Americans to see how communism or socialism could work in reality, like lower priced groceries, for example, like stuff like that. But what is your assessment of how viable socialism is in the US right now, in light of like the demonization of communism and Trump being back in the White House?
I mean, in short, I believe in the viability of socialism in the US, and I do believe the conditions are ripe for organizing toward it because simply we just like don't really have any other choice. It's either socialism or the death of the planet. It's either socialism or extinction. Trump has been in office for a little over a month now, and he's already trying to shred the little that's left of our social safety net. And he's doing that to benefit his billionaire friends, basically. Inflation is skyrocketing. They're trying to privatize every public good. This is a heist. They're trying to do this like massive wealth transfer from the working class to the ruling class, to these billionaires. At the same time, the administration pays lip service to the hardships of working people, but they blame immigrants for all of our problems. They blame immigrants for these economic crises. They're saying immigrants are taking up all our resources. There's not enough for you because of these immigrants. They don't pay taxes, which is false. Immigrants do pay taxes, or like undocumented immigrants. They say undocumented immigrants don't pay taxes, which is not true. So it's a classic divide and conquer strategy. And it's no question that conditions are going to get much harder for working people over the next 4 years. The question is, how do we present a program to counter that? How do we present an alternative? Well, we can't rely on the Democrats because the Democrats themselves have paved the way for Trump. They failed to counter the right wing attacks on our rights during the Biden administration. They refused to pass any sort of federal law enshrining the right to an abortion. Instead, they used abortion as a way to fundraise and rally voters without really doing anything to protect it in the end. And they also lurched rightward on immigration to try and capture voters from the Republican base. And they've overall failed to offer any kind of positive program for working people. So the only way forward is to build a mass movement and continue building the mass movement that we've organized during the genocide in Gaza. So the purpose of building that mass movement for Palestine was obviously to shift consciousness, but also to organize people into a broader struggle against US imperialism. So it's important to remember that we can't dismantle US imperialism or build a movement for socialism by treating every single struggle as a discrete, isolated phenomenon. Palestine here, immigration here, labor here. If you want to do that, you might as well join an NGO. The US government would love that because that poses no threat to them at all. So, what is the real solution to the occupation of Palestine? How do we dismantle Israel? How do we bring about the right conditions for Palestinian national liberation? It's to organize for socialism in the US. That's the only way. There was a long period last year where there would be sometimes multiple pro-Palestine protests a week. The Palestine protests are still happening, but not at that frequency. That doesn't mean the movement has died. It means the exact opposite, actually. What we've done is we've taken the infrastructure we've built during that period, taken the people we drew into the movement because of Palestine, and expanded the struggle. Now, people who are drawn into the movement because of Palestine are connecting US imperialism to, US policy in Korea, for example, US policy in Haiti. We're trying to link together all of these forms in which US imperialism manifests itself and links different countries. We're also connecting US imperialism to domestic policy at home and organizing against ICE raids on immigrants. In cities across the country, we've been organizing weekly volunteer meetings where people come and they plan outreach sessions to inform their communities of their rights if ICE comes knocking, informing their immigrant neighbors that they do have rights. You don't have to open the door for ICE unless they have like a valid warrant for your arrest. And they need to show it to you. And you don't have to open the door for them to show it to you. You can ask them to slide underneath the door. A lot of times they don't have a real warrant. You don't have to answer to them. For example, in Aurora, Colorado, I don't know if you're very familiar, but in the last year or so, there's been a lot of scaremongering around the immigrant community. They're saying that the immigrants are part of these Venezuelan gangs. It's ridiculous propaganda lies, but it's really taken hold, and there was a ton of media coverage about it. But what we found in Aurora is that the community has really rallied to defend their immigrant neighbors. They have weekly organizing meetings where they do the stuff that I mentioned, like organize to defend the immigrant communities. They have them every Monday, and the weekly meetings, they draw hundreds of people. They'll have their meeting in a church or something, and the church will be completely packed. So the Trump administration will continue to try and divide the working class, shift the blame of people's deteriorating economic conditions to immigrants, other workers. But we have to be there not only to correct those lies and direct blame to who's really at fault, which is the ruling class, the capitalists, the billionaires, but we also have to be there to offer a program of something better, to offer a socialist alternative. And I do believe, don't get me wrong, we do have a long way to go. It's a long road ahead of us. But I don't think that there's any sort of shortcut around it. Over the past year and a half since the genocide in Gaza started, I've seen these newly activated and politicized organizers. I've seen how committed everyone is, the sacrifices that they make for the movement. And that really makes me optimistic about our future. It makes me really optimistic about the viability of socialism in the US. And it makes me really believe that a new world is possible and we can organize toward it.